They did find a loss in production of power when it came to like strength training athletes. Like, hey, this person who stretches for 90 seconds or longer. All right, here's one which I'm gonna love to answer, but you're gonna love it too. Oh, my teeth look so white.
They do.
Um,
These look nice.
Thanks, man. All right, stretching. Does stretching help to prevent injuries?
When?
So, in just a general regard, will stretching help you be like more injury prone in just life, in activity, in the gym? Will somebody who stretches more often than somebody who doesn't, will they be more injury prone than a person that stretches regularly?
I have so many follow-up questions to answer this. Um,
Bring them. What's
well,
follow up?
it's like what's being paired with it? What type of context are we going into? Is it a athletic individual versus another athletic individual? One stretches, one doesn't. Or is this person training the full range of motion? Is mobility a portion of this? Or are we talking static stretching? Like, I would need
Static
a
stretching.
whole profile.
We are going with static stretching, and we'll keep the premise easy. This is static stretching for someone in a strength training program, and it can be before, during, or after exercise, any one of those three. But let's just say this is somebody who stretches more than somebody who doesn't. So somebody who doesn't do stretching versus somebody who does do stretching. And then in an athletic sense, you could say like, okay, in a pre somebody who stretches like remember PE days or back in high school where you on the football team you all sit down, you reach the further leg and you count together and you do stretches. Do those types of stretching. Does that help you prevent injuries?
There, on one hand, there's that I've been coaching, clients and athletes for so long, so it's like there's that element of like what's been ingrained in me from going year to year through the industry. But then there's
Hmm.
also that element of there's a lot of research going around mobility and static stretching that's been kind of coming out recently.
Hmm.
That a lot of it's been pointing to the fact that it's not really that effective on preventing injury as a whole, unless you have real dysfunction happening. Like stretching does a really good job of preventing injury if, like, oh, my pecs are really tight and my lats pulling on my shoulder, anteriorly rotating. Like, okay, yeah, we need to do stretching on that, but that's more in the terms of targeted mobility than say stretching. So I'm gonna say no, but I really would not be surprised if the answer is yes, it absolutely helps.
All right. Drum roll, please.
Lay it on me, buddy.
All right. They found on PubMed, this is actually another clinical study that came out of the Cavaliers of the Mayo clinical settings.
Love those
So
guys.
the article is actually titled Acute Effects of Static Stretching on Muscular Strength, Power, and Attempt to Clarify Preventional Caveats.
I think I
So,
read this one actually.
so they found that stretching did not help to reduce risk for injury in their athletes or in strength training because when you stretch, right, and you loosen up the tension of muscle, remember that GTO I had kind of mentioned earlier, is that tendons. So when you release muscle to its longer longevity or longest capabilities before going into a strength activity or going into some type of performance activity, you have reduced the amount of power that that muscle can actually produce. So the people that did stretching, they actually found that those ones were actually at higher risk for acute injury, but it wasn't significant enough to actually say like stretching causes injury. So there's
Yeah.
no causation factor. It's like, hey, they did find a loss in production of power when it came to like strength training athletes. Like, hey, this person who stretches for 90 seconds or longer because they can't produce the amount of force is their muscles are just too extended that now they're trying to contract, right? Is they're not contracting at their maximum capability. So that tight muscle actually helps to produce a little bit more power. And as far as injury prevention, they found that most people who actually injure themselves cause from a unpreventable action, something like a weight falling on their foot, something like, stepping in the wrong direction and their ankle twisting over. So there is no type of stretching that you can do to reduce that risk for just an accident. Accidents are bound to happen, and unfortunately as it is, that's what's going to happen. So the stretching risk. So they tried to find what was the best way. Can you imagine what they found was actually the best way to produce athletes to reduce risk of injury and also increase their power outage?
Was it warming up?
It was warming up through dynamic motion, going through range of
Oh,
motion through dynamic exercises. Da da da.
some
Something
might
that
call that mobility.
yeah, you and I would say like, okay, no duh. But yeah. So like if you're gonna go do like a bench press to like throw your arms in a couple of circles, do some slap overs, do some like opening ups, doing some tensile band exercises, something to like activate the tendons and to get your muscle kind of expanded, and it helps to actually open up and bring blood to that working area because blood can help produce energy because it delivers oxygen. We'll go into depth there,
Well, dude,
but
it's
that
huge though. That's
yeah,
huge. Dude,
so
that
that
that's
is
that's so cool. Like that's I always like when like things theorized in bodybuilding end up matching what the research is. And like a lot of times the things from bodybuilding come from just meatheads being meatheads and messing up a million times and figuring it out honestly by hitting our head against a wall.
yep,
But it's always the most mobile person that goes into bodybuilding that treats it like this yoga thing that ends up blowing out their knee or tearing their pec or something. It's never the guy that gets into their bench press and then goes, "Oh, let me do 4 or 5 working set warm up sets before I even get to a working set." That dude's never hurt. That's so cool. Nice.
yeah. In fact, if you were to even warm up dynamically, as far as like if you're gonna go do a squat, like you don't need to do necessarily go warm up on the treadmill, do swings and all the circles. I teach it to all my clients because I find it necessary for them because they don't know how to move their body. But for somebody who is more adept and knows how to like already hop into a squat, to just do it light, body weight, no weight on the bar, add light weight and slowly progress and just do lots of repetitions is the same as getting to that range of motion and depth. So,
That's great. That's great context, though. I like that a lot because that's the difference between someone who knows how to move weight and do the exercise correctly versus the average person. Like the average person, you put a barbell on their back to warm up, they have no idea how to move. Their
yeah,
squat day 1 versus day 5 versus day 20 is essentially completely different movements all days. Versus you get a strength athlete and you get them in the squat position or any of these movements day 1 to day 187 is pretty much the same damn movement. I mean, you might get like little variations, but my God, is their form pretty on point. I like that
yeah,
context differentiation you made there. That's good.
yeah. And it'd be different if you're going for like a maximum power versus a consistent type of like exercise. So just to give context, like if like you were saying earlier, if somebody's got their shoulder kind of locked up, of course you're going to do some type of static stretch to kind of open up their shoulder a little bit more. Not holding it for like 90 seconds or above, where it's
No,
so long. Maybe you have them go through a dynamic warm up where they're stretching forward and back, or they're rotating their arms forward and back. Whatever it is, as far as the dynamic motion, to just get them to full range of motion.